Developed and produced by Studio 3DO in 1995, Zhadnost, The People's Party, is an FMV-driven game show for 2 to 4 players. Taking the role of various citizens of the fictional nation of Bizzarnia, the players' characters are captured and made to compete for the opportunity for a one-way trip to the United States after a coup by Bob Bellini, who has overthrown the government to fulfill his desire to host a game show. The gameplay is simple. In pairs, players compete for a randomly determined number of seconds by participating in one of a handful of minigames. The resulting time is then used to traverse a rotating scoring area with Q*bert-style space painting. Score the most, and you're rewarded with an FMV clip of your character living out their American fantasies. 3 cycles of this later, one final winner gets an additional cutscene. This fanciful premise is empowered by the acting of its cast. Each of the characters employs some amount of personality. Ed Alter's role as Bob Bellini is the irresistible game show host. It invokes memories of previous ones like Gary Moore, though Lacey Powell's Mashka is closer to Vanna White than, say, Arlene Francis. Each of the 5 contestants are also somewhat offensive, somewhat zany caricatures played by unknown actors or voice personalities. All these dated references are intentional. The game borrows FMV clips from the same Cold War period that a lot of its themes are drawn from. Zhadnost tackles the days of impending nuclear war with levity, though. The word literally translates to greed, and the cast's names are clear wordplay of Russian names meant to evoke English terms and refer to their stereotypes. For example, Ziggy Nada's surname is as blatant as his velvet suit and his mobster facade. Ludmila Pektoralvik is the biggest and strongest. Even Ray Tolstoy hits the notes as a fill-in for Johnny Olsen, even if Olsen never penned War and Peace. Paired perfectly with Zhadnost's 60s insensibilities is its music, combed from the beaches by George the Fat Man Sanger and Team Fat. Sanger's legacy as a composer spans decades. His original work on the surf rock served as a subversive representation of the rebellion. You can almost imagine Bellini plotting his overthrow of Bizzarnia with the tunes playing on vinyl in his run-down government housing. Of course, that's absurd, and really, that's Zhadnost. Absurdity conveniently wrapped in a digestible time frame. A little weird, fairly hollow, and lovable. Just like its houndstooth toast. Thoughts?
So yeah, like this game really didn't have a whole lot going for it aside from the acting, and it's just all the mini games have been done before. There's a matching game, there's a trivia game or whatnot. It's really just the whole wrapping up as an FMV that makes it worth playing at all.
Yeah, and this is actually, it's not the first game in this vein. It's not technically a sequel, but it's sort of a sequel to Twisted the Game Show. The same mini-games pop up a couple times. I think Lip Service and I Spy are both matching games. One's matching sounds, one's matching pictures. But those matching games were in that as well. So obviously, you know, the investment in this game was very much sort of in the veneer, sort of the theme and the acting and the characters, and that's something I think you saw a lot of with these early CD-based systems, Sega CD games, Panasonic 3DO games. It was so exciting to have 480 plus megs of space to work with that you really wanted to kind of explore what you could do with that, and I think oftentimes the functional gameplay was kind of the consequential loss that came from it.
People are just throwing in extra movies or sounds, just trying to cram it with all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, but those movies are great.
The movies really made it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the movies are, I mean, I would imagine a lot of that stuff is like public domain. Like, it looks like you could have pulled that off of the Internet Archive, or in the case of, you know, their situation at the time, they could have gone down to like the Library of Congress, you know, and gotten a lot of that file footage, or, you know, libraries having that stuff available.
Yeah.
But thematically, it's great. Like, it fits this whole ridiculous collapsed, you know, post-Soviet nation in this sort of absurdist way that just makes the presentation worth the time. Because like you said, I mean, like, minigames, propaganda, I don't know how you and Hillary managed to get, like, almost all of those right by guessing.
Which one was that?
Oh, that was literally, I only guessed. I did not read a single one of those questions.
Was that the trivia one?
Yeah, those are trivia.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and the questions for those were really difficult questions.
Every one I did was a random guess.
Well, it was like there were only like 3 answers, right?
Yeah, so you just got
33%.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, 3 buttons on the controller, so.
Yeah.
Right.
The controller's got a lot of similarities to, like, the original Genesis one. Although,
Yeah.
again, we mentioned it in the playthrough, it's got the daisy chain thing going on with the plugs.
Has any other system done that?
Not that I'm aware of, and I doubt nowadays when you have, systems all remote wireless, like Bluetooth or GSM wireless, whatever it is, I don't think you'll really see that again.
Yeah.
But I guess the closest thing you had to that was like playing multiplayer systems that you'd have to hook up with like the link cable
Oh yeah,
with
like
the Game Boy,
right, the GameCube
or
and all that.
stuff along those lines. That's probably about as close as you get to it. So the weakness of the mini games is something we've been kind of chatting on here. Just to recap, you've got Propaganda, which is a trivia game. Troika, which I actually kind of like. Troika was the one, and I didn't really explain it too well how to play in the playthrough. You get all these different symbols. It's like hammers and screws and bolts, and they come in 3 colors: red or green or blue.
Oh, that's right.
And they come in 3 quantities, like 1, 2, or 3.
That was the one that was like set.
I don't
Yeah,
understand
it's
that
kind of
one
like playing
still.
set.
Yeah, so the idea of that game was like if you picked
Harder.
3 things, it would do a comparison on those things, and the more they had in common, the more points you get. So if you picked 3 things that were all red, that's worth 1 point. If you pick 3 things that are all red and all have 2 of whatever they are, that's 2 points. If you picked 3 things that were all count of 3 and red and the same thing, that would be worth 3 points. But the way like the board is laid out, there's really almost never 3 of the same like spaces on the board. So you're basically trying to pick a 2-point selection as quick as you can,
Right.
because most of the games here, you have a limited amount of time to make your choices, and so the quicker you go in picking something, the more things you can pick eventually, which means the more overall points you get. It's kind of a neat idea for a game. And it's the closest thing they have to like an actual kind of fun, meaningful mini game in this short collection. Because we've been talking about that's 2. There's only 3 others. Yankee Stooge Cinema is it looks kind of cool. It's like a sliding puzzle game sort of, but it's video, and you had to assemble the video.
Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a sliding puzzle; it was a swap puzzle, because you would click a space, move it somewhere, click another space, move it somewhere. And then I Spy and Lip Service, as we mentioned, were the 2 matching games: match sights or match sounds. 5 mini games does not really a game make.
And all of them are
Wait, wasn't
easily.
there that one with the slidey thing? Where you moved, one person moved
That
up
was
and down,
for-
and one person
Oh,
left and
I mean,
right?
that wasn't technically a mini game, but like
Oh.
to decide what game
Oh,
you
yeah.
played,
Oh, yeah.
you would have the 2 characters kind of move on that weird gear like effect board,
Yeah.
and one player controlled the horizontal, one player controlled the vertical, and wherever they intersected on the board is what minigame would be played. Or if you managed to maneuver it onto like a face, that player would get the seconds
Yeah.
automatically. I think Momo, you got the automatic seconds for one of them, I think.
Oh, did you?
Did I?
Yeah, I think she did.
I think I did.
Yeah, I think you were the
That sounds
first.
like
I
me.
think you were the one person in the group that would like just was automatically awarded seconds for it.
Just
But-
skip the mini games.
Don't eat 'em. Don't eat 'em.
But that's a good segue too, because it gets us into I guess all of the FMV work they had to do to power this game. It's one thing to just have like short 30-second or minute-long clips that are acted out, and it's not a green screen thing. It's footage of them talking and doing whatever. But there was so much green screen work in this game because
yeah.
they had to take the idle animations and the dancing animations for all 5 characters, whether they were on the horizontal or the vertical, like when they were just kind of goofing around or Snoopy dancing or whatever they were doing. They had to have all of that footage. They had to have the footage of them kind of bouncing left and right when they were on the random thing to determine how much time passed. They had to have the footage of them falling into the hole and then being like shuddered out of it. They had to have the footage of them kind of like pacing behind the normal like Jeopardy style section where they were waiting to see whose turn it was. They had to have footage of them looking happy or looking unhappy based on whether they won or lost the mini game. They had to have footage of them almost like 360 degrees at 5 different scales for when they go around the money go round.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
To
true.
and stepping forward and stepping backwards, and jumping into that gap. Although we didn't do it in our playthrough, we didn't actually jump into the time saver in the middle. So like, there's a ton of green screen footage you have to capture, and a lot of these FMV games, part of the, I guess, I don't want to say laziness, but part of the direction of these games is such that the interactivity always seems to be hampered because the FMV part is more of a gloss. It's more of like just a bonus. It's like, oh, you get a cutscene type thing. You don't usually see it this heavily integrated into gameplay. And I do want to just give like a huge shout out that like that's actually really well done in this game. For as little gameplay as there is in Zhadnost, the presentation for an FMV game is terrific. Like it gets so much out of standard definition file footage of complete nobodies that are acting.
I mean, it really feels like you're watching a game show, like as you're playing it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
And if you've played games like Night Trap or Sewer Shark or what is it? It's the not immersion. I'll put that down on I'm thinking of a game where like you're basically being injected into a matrix and it's like a first person shooter type thing. It's another. I've got it for the 3DO as well. But a lot of those games just have the FMVs there for storytelling purposes. And for this game, it kind of functions in a lot of different ways. It's neat. In fact, they even managed to, like in Yankee Stooge Cinema, embedding the video into those tiles and having each of those tile chunks continuing to play its video on the individual tile cells. That's actually pretty clever. That's not the easiest thing to dial up.
I have a stupid question.
Yeah, what's up?
What does FMV mean?
Yeah, it's full motion video.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we tend to throw these acronyms around in the community, and it's good to I guess, define this stuff. The full motion video sort of era is synonymous really with early CD-based games because we went from having like a floppy disk that held 1.44 megabytes to a CD that held 480 megabytes, and you're just going, wow, what do we do with all this extra footage? Oh, well, digitizing video is becoming a thing now, so why don't we actually just have video clips in the game? It's the next big thing. You see a lot of FMVs typically used as like cutscenes in games, and eventually the engines got better, and now we tend to do a lot of stuff in engine, or we may like have cutscenes in engine, but we kick up the graphics and pre-render them. But it's all mostly like in-engine work now. You don't see as many cutscenes. The ones you do see tend to be full motion animations as opposed to full motion video. Think like the cutscenes in Warcraft or the cutscenes in really any Blizzard game. Cutscenes in Final Fantasy, yeah, where like stuff's happening and it's very obvious it's like in a completely different engine, and then you go back to the game. That tends to be where the FMVs have gone to. Some of the really exciting FMV stuff was like when Command & Conquer. I think Red Alert 2, Red Alert 3, the Wing Commander series with like Mark Hamill and all the FMVs and the later entries in that. There were some great uses of FMV, but they weren't the most creative uses of FMV. And I think where this game, it may not be a great game, but where it deserves some love is in how like ambitious they were with using FMV tech. Speaking of, we were dying laughing.
Yes.
In this playthrough.
It was so funny.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
When I start to laugh and I get stressed, and it's just like they
did a good job of making you stressed.
Yeah,
in that
no,
game.
like when they throw you into the games, they give you so little time to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And it kind of like freaked me out a little bit, and I was like, "What am I supposed to be doing?"
Yeah, and it does kind of work out that way to where it's the freneticism of something kind of makes it even more funny. Mario Party is perfect for this.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Mario Party's mini games are so frenetic and so enjoyable, and you're just dying laughing during them. One of the things I was wondering while I was kind of penning up the review is, could you imagine a game with this level of quality in the presentation, but good mini games?
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Mini games that are
right.
like engaging and multiplayer and exciting and competitive, and they're still only like 20 or 30 seconds, but they're like really, really frenetic and fun.
It would make you want to play the game instead of playing it once, going, "Huh, that's pretty cool," and looking up the rest of the FMVs on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right, and we tried to do that. This game was our first foray into bonus episodes, because I could not find a single video online with all of the endings. So I sat here and played through 5 complete games.
You are the true hero.
And I filmed the whole thing and then just edited it up, so our bonus episode has all the FMVs for all 5 characters, including the 3 dreams that they get to have along the course of the thing, and then their final one. Some of those are great. Ludmilla's 3rd video, where she's named Miss America, is amazing.
If only I'd won.
Yeah, so we ended up, I think I had, the first one where I got to play the cat skills, and then Matt won the next 2.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right? So we got to see, you running for governor. What a beautiful city. So flammable.
It would be a real shame if something would have happened to it.
That character's great.
So, the videos are amazing. The characters are hilarious. But this game was made in 1995. Ziggy Nada you could still probably get away with, as terrible a caricature of a mobster as he is. I don't think you can reasonably make a new game with Ludmilla Pectoralbeck.
Come on.
You'd be walking such a dangerous line.
You'd be walking on glass.
With
but...
who?
Well, it depends. It's all a presentation-based thing, right? And then
on a Russian standpoint, I could see it going flying.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tricky. And then we didn't play as the cellist, Little Ivana Borshnik.
Oh yeah.
Was the one character we didn't have in our playthrough. She basically rants and smashes things in her cutscenes, which is cool, but not amazing.
That's right. That was the one that I really didn't care for.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think you mentioned it. They kind of phone it in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I could not find really any acting information on the cast. They have the cast and their names and stuff. Ray Tolstoy is a voice actor. He's done a ton of stuff. I'll put his name at the bottom. I don't have it offhand at the moment. A few of the people that worked on the game had done voices for other games, but there's not really much in the way of acting credits for anybody here.
A couple people, their IMDb pages are literally this.
Yeah. No, I
Start
think
and
3 or
end
4
their
of them
Yeah.
are when you go to look at it. I don't know if these were people that were working at Studio 3D at the time. And they were like, hey, we need a few people to come into the green screen room for a few hours. And just whoever was available, I don't know. But they do, despite their lack of fame or fortune necessarily, they fit their roles pretty well. They are extremely goofy, they're bizarre, they're sort of stereotypical, but they do, I think, effectively play the role. Particularly Bob Blaney, who to me is... he's got that perfect mesh of, he's very frantic, the tapping on the screen, saying things like, "Did you get those rules? Me neither."
It's just super over the top, just peppy.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when the KGB operatives we have ways of making you talk. He's like, "Oh, watch out!"
Yeah,
His timing is perfect.
Yeah.
He's campy. He's also out of place.
Yeah.
Bob Blaney
Yeah.
is the only one who sounds American.
Right.
Yeah.
All the others, are very obviously Bizzarnians. Oh, poor Yurgi.
Yurgi.
Yurgi was supposed to be, and obviously Blaney is intentionally a massive contrast from Comrade Host.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Blaney is sort of this neat character in that he's led this revolution. He's overthrown the government. To play the game show, he's so blatantly the mixture of a few sort of different American game show hosts. Mishka is sort of Vanna White-ish. She's sort of the silent co-host.
Right.
I think in Kropotkin's ending, she also gets used as a body shield.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
No actual shots fired, but he grabs her
okay.
and uses her as
Oh, that's right. He goes up the ramp.
yeah,
with it.
nobody
Oh,
follow
that's
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
You've all been a great audience. Don't follow me. And runs out with her. But yeah, so I think they do a good job of carrying it, making it work. The tech side of stuff I talked about before, I was impressed by how technical they go with the green screening and putting people in all these places and cutting in and out, moving them around. But you still have to have memorable and fun acting from those characters. Like, they could have been very wooden, and it would not have been interesting. I really do think all 7 people they had on camera, I guess, no, 9 if you count Yurgi and Comrade Host, it really worked. You know, like, they sold the theme well. They sold them being these caricatures of a fake, you know, satellite republic, you know, Soviet Union situation from, like, the 90s, that has gone through a revolution, and they're there to play a game, but they feel like their character's there. And Bob Bellini is the one that doesn't really feel like he's from this world, which creates this neat little sense of separation, which I guess also makes sense because technically the player, you know, we're the players, we're the ones playing all the Bizzarnians. And the game, you know, kind of Bellini really is the game.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So I mentioned Twisted the Game Show. Studio 3DO really only made, I think it was like fewer than 20 games, top to bottom, first party stuff, in their lifetime. And this was one of the, if not the last one. There are not a ton of great 3DO games, sadly. I mean, there are some good ones out there, but some of them aren't exclusives. You can get them on other systems.
Right.
And 3DO is not the easiest thing to collect for in the first place, let alone get a good recording of. We used S-Video through the FrameMeister for this, and it was good enough. Like, I wasn't going to pay to RGB mod the Panasonic 3DO. But that said, if you do end up with a 3DO, you can get a small handful of games and be relatively satisfied that you've got a decent representative, like, sampling of what the system has to offer. And when it comes to FMV games, I feel like this one's a must-have. It's an FMV game. It's a first-party game. It's later in the life cycle, so they've kind of gotten their, you know, they've kind of gotten their tech. They're a little more comfortable with it. Technically, it's good. There's not a lot of game here. You can probably only play it once or twice with the same group of people. And then you can, like, show it off to new people that show up, like, hey, you have to see this crazy, wacky game.
Everyone will be entertained by it.
Yes.
It's not a bad choice to have to show people.
Super entertaining, very low replay value.
And it's the game. The mini games are weak enough that people that aren't playing don't really feel like they're missing out.
Yeah, they can sit there and watch it. They're getting just as much out of it as the people playing.
Which is good, because we've got a couple episodes that they can watch of this right now.
Do it.
Anything
Never
else
have to play it.
before we wrap this up?
So Studio 3DO did they have any other, like, bigger titles? Like, I know you mentioned they had, like, 20-something odd titles.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull up a list of Studio 3DO first-party titles here. But I mentioned Twisted the Game Show. And, whoops, that is a list of tons of things. We want Studio 3DO. Here we go. So you had Killing Time. Killing Time was a weird first-person... that had some FMV elements, too. Imagine a game like Doom, but the enemies, like, at times were basically FMV, like, cutouts of people. Huh. That one's worth looking at, but I believe if you're going to do that, it's just as easy to get, like, the PS1 version of it.
Oh, fair.
So Jurassic Park Interactive. Just about every version of Jurassic Park that came out for a system is at least playable. Jurassic Park Interactive it's just a tremendous tire fire. It is so wonderfully terrible that it must be played to understand how terrible it is. If I remember correctly, one of the mini games is like Space Invaders, but it's like dinosaur heads, like just drifting back and forth and coming down.
Sounds amazing.
This sounds like absolute minimal effort. Let's take Jurassic Park on it.
It was the biggest cash grab, like, of anything Jurassic Park ever made. So I mentioned Twisted the Game Show, which is sort of like the precursor to this. We have a copy of Club 3DO Station Invasion, which is sort of a kid's game, although I haven't had a chance to actually fire that up yet. And then there were some other things that got made for the 3DO that are not appropriate for all audiences. So we will skip on those.
The titles are great, though,
Yeah.
if you want to look those up.
That's humorous, if nothing else. Which is, I guess, what you could say about this game. Humorous, if nothing else.
Hey, I like it.
All right, so I think that wraps it up for me. Momo, this was your first guest appearance. So, having actually gone through a recording with us, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I can honestly say that my blood pressure has never gone from 0 to 100 like that. Just being thrown into the mini games, like I said, it's good enough for me.
Worse than Mario Kart?
No, because Mario Kart, I know what's going on.
That's
fair.
true.
I know the rules of Mario Kart.
Yeah,
That's-
but even the host doesn't know the rules.
Yeah,
of
that's
this.
true. He basically,
Yeah.
like, Ray Tolstoy, like, reads through them all super quick. They've got, like, the pictures flashing by the screen. All of the disclaimer text scrolls up in, like, a quarter second. And he goes, confused? Me too! Let's play anyway.
That's the whole point.
So at least we were all sort of on an equal playing footage of awfulness.
Except I panic.
Well, there's that.
So
I like the propaganda game. I could just button mash and sometimes win.
Yeah.
I have to read every question.
Nope.
Yeah, but you're rewarded for button mashing and propaganda because the
Exactly.
faster you answer, the more points
Exactly. It
It's
was
not
totally worth
fair.
it.
it's worth. So, all right. I think that wraps this review up. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested, again, we have a playthrough of Zhadnost, the People's Party, here on the channel. We've also got the bonus episode with all the endings, so you can either hear us cackle and play the game, or you can just get to the good part.
I'm not sure which is more worth it.
Yeah.
They're both worth it. All right. Thank you again so much, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you.
See